This morning I'd like to introduce our guest musician for the prelude. This is Ruthie Hilton. She's going to be entering the 6th grade. And this morning for the prelude we're going to play Sonatina Spiritoso by Dennis Alexander.
Well, that was awesome. Ruthie, I'm just going to say you're welcome back anytime to play, and I would have said that even if you hadn't done a good job, but you did a good job. You did a good job. You did a real good job. That's Freedom School Speak, so thank you for being here and your whole family. Wonderful to have you all with us. Good morning. Welcome to Peace United Church of Christ, where no matter who you are or where you are on life's journey, you are welcome here. Before we get going with the rest of our worship, I want to lift up a family today, and we've got 3 quilts for this family, and that is Judy's sister's family. So Christy went in for surgery a week ago. It was routine, and she died unexpectedly. And so we are going to be giving these wonderful quilts that the quilters and artists create to show our prayer support for the family. And so this is the first one. And this one is for Jenny. That is Christy's daughter. And we're not passing these around yet to have people tie and pray, just because we're somewhat concerned still about COVID. So that's Jenny's. And this one is for Weezer. Now, Weezer's name is Terrence, but because all the dogs are named Terrence in the family, they call him Weezer instead, which is interesting because my dog's name was Weezer, and so it's hard for me to think about that. But this is for Weezer, and that's Christy's son. And the reason we're doing it is because everybody lives separate, right? This is one of my favorite books. And this is for Terry. This is for Christy's husband and Scott and Judy's brother-in-law. So we'll be praying for them, the family, for Judy and Scott too, of course, and for all the other people who are close to this family. And just to let you know, we'll celebrate Christy's life here on the 22nd of July. So just so for you to know that. So I'm just going to leave them there. We can just be praying during our time of worship. Now, our opening words require your input, as we sometimes do. So when I raise my hand like this, I will invite you to say, open our hearts and minds. And that shouldn't be hard for us to say because we talk about that a lot. So let's give that a try. Open our hearts and minds. Excellent. Very good. Here we are. We have answered your call. We have come with questions, with hopes and dreams. Open our hearts and minds. Like those who have come before us, we yearn for some good news. Open our hearts and minds. May it be so. Let us stand now in body or spirit as we sing from our binder. All the music this morning will be sung from your binder. And while I'm saying that, Scott, if you could do me a favor, if you could just turn your binder around and put it up. At the front of your binder, you will see the order of worship that we have, and inside the very first, inside the cover is our prayer. So the Lord's Prayer and other prayers that we do together as a community are there too, so you can follow along. So let's go to our binders, 155, and sing O Day of Radiant Gladness. Please stand in body or spirit as we sing together. 155.
Thank you, Ann and Darcy. The people of Israel settled in Egypt under Joseph's leadership. Pharaoh looked upon Joseph with favor, but after Joseph died, things began to fall apart. Hear these words from the first chapter of Exodus, verses 8 through 14, and the third chapter of Exodus, verses 7 through the first part of verse 8. A new king arose over Egypt who did not know Joseph. He said to his people, "Look, the Israelite people are more numerous and more powerful than we. Come, let us deal shrewdly with them, or they will increase, and in the event of war, join our enemies and fight against us and escape from the land." Therefore, they set taskmasters over them to oppress them with forced labor. They built supply cities, Pithom and Ramses, for Pharaoh. But the more they were oppressed, the more they multiplied and spread, so that the Egyptians came to dread the Israelites. The Egyptians became ruthless in imposing tasks on the Israelites and made their lives bitter with hard service in mortar and brick and in every kind of field labor. They were ruthless in all the tasks that they imposed on them. And then the Holy One said, "I have observed the misery of my people who are in Egypt. I have heard their cry on account of their taskmasters. Indeed, I know their sufferings, and I have come down to deliver them from the Egyptians." And let us also be reminded of the words from the beginning of the world. It began as a formless void, and darkness covered the face of the deep, while a wind from God swept over the face of the waters. And then God set about creating. And after 6 days, God's work was done. Hear these words from Genesis 2, 1 through 3. Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all their multitude. And on the seventh day, God finished the work that God had done, and God rested on the seventh day from all the work that God had done. So God blessed the seventh day and hallowed it, because on it God rested from all the work that God had done in creation. For the wisdom contained in these holy words, we give thanks. Amen.
Have compassion for everyone you meet, even if they don't want it. It seems conceit, bad manners, or cynicism is always a sign of things no ears have heard, no eyes have seen. You don't know what wars are going on down where the spirit meets the bone. Ring the bells that still can ring. Forget your perfect offering. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. Chaos. The world began in chaos. And God stepped in. We know the first story of creation, don't we? God went about setting things up, separated the land and water, designated sun and moon, and then God created all kinds of plant life and creatures, including human beings. And when God was done, God rested. On the seventh day, God rested and made that day hallowed. Made it holy. Sabbath. We were not made for it. It was made for us. That's important for us to remember. It was made for humanity to take a breath, to stop for a time, rest our bodies, rest our minds, rest our souls, to step out of the chaos of the world and rest. And the chaos of the world is exceptionally well described in the Exodus story this morning. Build, build, build. Work the fields nonstop. The text tells us Pharaoh's people were ruthless in their imposition of tasks forced upon the Israelites. They were doing it to oppress them. The Israelites' world was in chaos. And God stepped in. God stepped in and went about setting things up to liberate the people of Israel from an oppressive system. Introduced locusts and frogs, flies and boils, hails and fire to shake up the oppressive system. God made a path through the sea. God took the Israelites out of Egypt and through the wilderness. And there, on a mountain, God gave Moses some instructions. And one of those instructions was about honoring the Sabbath. It was holy. It was a sacred time, a time to rest body and mind and soul. Sabbath. We were not made for it. It was made for us. It invites us to step away from the chaos of the world and not be bound by all the rules that our society and culture has created. This notion of rest is a radical notion in a capitalistic society where human beings are encouraged, some might say demanded, to go 100 miles an hour all the time in order to get ahead. We must do more so we can have more, so we can be more, be somebody, have that thing, that expensive car that gives us status in society we desire, those shoes or clothes that will render us cool and in style, the house in the cherished zip code with the right number of bedrooms and bathrooms that will solidify our image and place, the right school providing honor and high regard, the promotion that will bring us renown and power. Always, well, as Walter Brueggemann says, push to achieve, accomplish, perform, possess, consume. Now, resting, never resting, always moving, climbing, stepping on and over people to get to the top, to show we are significant, supreme, taking care only of ourselves and what is ours, living with the individualistic and self-serving, pulled up by my own bootstraps attitude and diminishing, perhaps even hurting, anyone who stands in the way of what we believe we deserve. Then, looking down with disdain on anyone who asks for our help, wondering why they don't get a job, dress better, find a place to live, try harder, never pondering if our upward mobility required our foot on their back to get there. Instilling in our children the same drive and attitude by teaching to test and frantically chauffeuring them around from one practice to another to participate in the extracurricular activities necessary to get into the best college so they too can get ahead, so they too can step into the chaos of the world that is the world that we live in. Doesn't it make you tired just thinking about it? About the chaos in the world, in our systems, and in our own minds and souls, living into a mantra of don't stop, don't stop, don't stop. We might not have Pharaoh pushing us, but the system and society we live in is no less demanding. It oppresses our bodies and minds and souls. I bought a pot like this a few weeks ago. I actually forgot my pot at home, so thank God Judy and Scott have one, just exactly like mine, except mine is red. But I got this a few weeks ago. It's called a mocha pot. It makes espresso on my stovetop, and along with some milk heated on that same stovetop, makes cafe con leche, the drink I fell in love with in Spain when I was walking the Camino. Why did I purchase it? Well, when I was in Spain, now almost a year ago, can you believe that? I would get up in the mornings and get to it. I'd pack up my few belongings, grab my walking poles, and start walking. I walked with purpose. I stopped only when I absolutely needed to. I had a destination to reach. Now, that destination was actually 500 miles away, right? But I had a destination to reach. I watched others as others stopped, some quite frequently. and wondered however they thought they were going to get there. Where, you ask? Well, I actually don't know. I just thought they should not stop so often. Until one day, Lars began to walk with me. Lars was from Sweden. He too had a plan and a destination in mind. He stopped every chance he got to have a cafe con leche and a chat with whomever was sitting at the little outdoor cafes scattered along the Camino. Since I was walking with him, I stopped too. I didn't want to seem rude, and since he walked faster than I did, and it took a lot more for me to keep up with him, I needed a rest. We stopped at every cafe. Every cafe. At first I felt panicked. Was I going to get to the destination I had set for myself that day? Would I be late? What? Be late? For what? What was I thinking? I had a room already booked, because I'm a little bit organized. I had the whole day to get where I needed to go. What was the hurry, I finally asked myself. I was on sabbatical, after all. And doesn't that sound a lot like Sabbath? From that day on, I took my time. I stopped frequently, not as frequently as Lars, but I stopped frequently just to look around at the beauty I was walking through. I stopped whenever I felt like it. I felt liberated. I realized that I was still caught up in the chaos of the world that pushes us to achieve, accomplish, perform, possess, consume. I was still living into the societal mantra of don't stop. Don't stop. Don't stop. Even on sabbatical. Cafe con leche saved me. On October 1st, I remember that day because I wrote about it in my Camino journal. That's the kind of stuff I wrote about in my Camino journal, where I stopped for coffee, what the bathrooms were like, all that kind of really important stuff. Not really about what I was thinking or feeling, but that's what I wrote about. Anyway, I remember the day because I wrote it down. I had walked about 10 kilometers, the sun had risen, the air was brisk, and there it was, a little cafe with Andre Bocelli's voice spilling out of it into the fresh air. A cafe con leche and a chocolate croissant were just waiting for me. I stopped. Life was good in that moment. A few months ago, I realized the don't stop mantra was beginning to take hold once again. And I'm just actually I wrote that down, and I confessed to my husband earlier this morning. He said, how long do you think it took before you actually got back into the don't stop mantra? And I said, almost immediately. So I'm going to revise what I wrote. I'm going to say several months ago, I realized the don't stop mantra was beginning to take hold once again. And I remembered the cafe with Andre Bocelli and the opportunity to rest for a minute and take in the beauty of the world around me. And finally, I became desperate to get that feeling back. It seems a silly thing that a coffee pot could help, but I will tell you, cafe con leche has become a symbol of Sabbath for me. Each morning, I take the time to make it. Preparation takes all my concentration. Don't want the milk to scald on the stovetop. When it is finally prepared, I go outside with my steaming cup of coffee to sit on the back steps, to be. To just be. Here's what I saw yesterday morning. Birds everywhere. In my backyard now stand 3 bird feeders I received from Joanne from her backyard. I accepted them along with some bird feed, not because I was crazy about birds, Joanne, but because I knew Joanne wanted them to find a home. So being the kind and compassionate pastoral figure, I said, I will take those bird feeders, and wondered what I was going to do. Several bags of bird feed later, those bird feeders have found a home with me. It's quite amazing to watch the antics of these creatures. They perch on the sunflowers that were planted by nature. if you know what I mean. They perch on the flowers that are in full bloom, reaching for the sun as it rises. The sunflowers sway with the breeze. It also moves my wind chimes, creating beautiful music. There are 3 squirrels that have found a safe place to play in the little fenced-in garden, safe from my dogs. They scamper up and down the big tree that sits in the middle of the garden. They race on the ground, zigzagging through the sunflowers, hoping to catch the feed the birds have dropped before they get planted in my soil. Over the top of the fence that cuts through the middle of my backyard, I see a black cat. It is stretching and enjoying the sunrise too. Zen, my German shepherd, is going crazy, barking at the intruder. The cat, knowing he is safe, and because he is a cat, looks at Zen, turns his tail, and walks off slowly. And Zen lopes back to the steps and sits beside me, watching the world. 30 minutes. 30 minutes. My soul is refreshed. A Sabbath snapshot. Every morning. What if Sabbath became a priority for us? What if we acknowledged its sacredness and accepted it as a gift from God, made for us? Made for us so we can rest our bodies and our minds and our souls and just be. Maybe read a good book. What if we made a commitment to step away from the chaos that is in the world and in society, stepped away from the systems that are oppressive and coerce us into non-stop motion, that push us to achieve, accomplish, perform, possess, consume at the cost of our lives and the lives of other people? What if we stepped away from that and stepped out instead for a walk? What if we stopped in the midst of the uncertainty of our own lives, uncertainty that causes us extreme anxiety? What if we stopped, put our phones away, and sat down and delighted in the beauty that is around us, or enjoyed a simple conversation with another person or our dog? What if we did this? It's a radical idea. Practicing Sabbath stands in the face of a capitalistic system that cries out, don't stop, don't stop, don't stop. It acknowledges that we don't need to achieve more to be more. We are enough just as we are. We are beloved and precious children of God, worthy of rest, worthy of Sabbath. After all, God created the Sabbath in the beginning. On the 7th day, God saw chaos, stepped in, and went about setting things up and calming things down. God created the Sabbath just for us, to liberate us from chaos and oppressive systems. Wouldn't it be a shame if we missed out on the chance to accept this sacred gift? Maybe, just maybe, we should give it a try. Amen. As we leave this sacred place and go into the world of sacred place, let us remember, work 6 days. Well, work 5 days, work 6 days, rest 1 day. It's good for our body and our soul and our mind. Let us do that so we might do God's work with more energy. Go in peace.